The graveyard belt stretched across empty space like a river of dead metal. Thousands of ships floated here, broken and forgotten. Some were old warships with holes in their hulls. Others were cargo vessels that ran out of fuel centuries ago. Every species in the galaxy dumped their unwanted ships in this place, and every species sent salvagers to pick through the remains. Ho stood at the window of the Persistent and watched the wreckage drift past. He was a quiet man in his mid-30s with rough hands and old scars on his fingers. 20 years of working with machines had left their marks on him. He had been a military engineer once, building weapons for the Earth Defense Force. Then came the accident that killed 3 of his crew members. The military said it was not his fault. Ho did not agree. He left the service and found work on salvage ships, fixing broken things in the dark corners of space. Captain Park Wu walked onto the bridge with a data pad in her hand. She was a practical woman in her 40s who had run the Persistent for 15 years. Her crew was small, just Ho and young Sung, but she preferred it that way. Fewer people meant fewer problems. Got something interesting, Wu said. She handed the data pad to Ho. Coordinates for a big wreck in the deep section. The seller wanted almost nothing for them. Ho looked at the information. The ship was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long. No species identification. No damage reports. Just coordinates and a note that said abandoned. "Why so cheap?" he asked. "Because everyone already looked at it." Wu sat down in the captain's chair. Commerce Authority, the traders, even those strange beings from the Outer Rim, they all sent teams. They all left with nothing. Sung looked up from his pilot controls. He was barely 25, with bright eyes and too much energy. Maybe they missed something. Humans are good at finding things others miss. Wu laughed. That is what every salvager says before they waste a week on empty metal. But she was already setting the course. Credits were credits, and the Persistent needed fuel. The journey took 3 days. The deep section of the graveyard belt was dark and cold, far from any star. When they finally arrived, Ho understood why others had abandoned their search. The ship was beautiful. It hung in the darkness like a sleeping giant. Its hull was smooth and silver, with no rust, no battle damage, no signs of age. Long curved wings stretched from its sides, and its main body rose in elegant layers like a temple built for space travel. This was not the work of any species Ho knew. This was something older, something from a time before the current galactic powers existed. "No wonder they left it," Wu said quietly. "Design has to be." Ho had heard stories about everyone had. They were an ancient species that disappeared 400,000 years ago. Their technology was legendary, far beyond anything modern civilizations could build. But their ships were also famous for something else. They did not work. Every artifact ever found sat dark and silent, refusing to respond to any attempt at activation. "It is just a museum piece," Sung said, disappointment in his voice. "Pretty but dead." Ho said nothing. He was watching the ship carefully. Something felt wrong, but not in a bad way. It felt like the moment before a machine started working, that quiet pause before power flowed through circuits. "I want to go inside," he said. Wu raised an eyebrow. "Others have tried, they found nothing." "I still want to look." They docked at an airlock covered in alien writing. Ho recognized some of the symbols, warnings to stay away. Commerce Authority legal notices claiming jurisdiction. Graffiti from a dozen species all saying the same thing. Dead ship, empty ship, waste of time. Ho ignored them all and stepped inside. The interior was dark but clean. No dust, no decay. The air was stale but breathable, as if life support had only recently stopped working. Ho walked slowly, running his hand along the walls. The metal was cool and smooth under his fingers. Wu and Sung followed behind him, their flashlights cutting through the shadows. They passed through empty corridors and abandoned rooms. Everything was intact but powerless. "This is pointless," Wu said after an hour of searching. We should leave and sell the coordinates to someone else. But Ho kept walking. He could feel something now, a faint vibration in the walls that others might have missed. It was weak, barely there, like a heartbeat from very far away. He followed it deeper into the ship, past sealed doors and forgotten chambers. Finally, he reached a large circular door in the lowest level of the ship. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing with the faintest blue light. The heartbeat was strongest here. "Ho," Wu said carefully, "maybe we should think about this." He did not answer. He reached out and pressed his palm against the door. Light exploded through the corridor. Blue energy raced along the walls, climbing toward the ceiling, spreading through the ship like blood returning to a body. Ho felt warmth flow through his hand, not painful but welcoming, like a greeting from an old friend. The door opened. Beyond it was a chamber filled with floating crystals and holographic displays. At its center stood a tall pillar of light that pulsed with the same rhythm Ho had felt in the walls, the ship's heart. A voice spoke. It was not human, not any language Ho had ever heard, but somehow he understood it perfectly. "You are compatible," the ship said. "I have waited 400,000 years. Welcome, operator." Behind him, Wu whispered something that sounded like a prayer. Sung stood frozen with his mouth open. Ho looked at the pillar of light. He was just a mechanic, a man who fixed broken things. He had never wanted power or fame, but the ship had chosen him. "Why me?" he asked. The light pulsed gently. "Because you listen to machines, because you understand them, because you are patient." A pause. "Because you are human." Outside, in the cold of space, other ships were already turning toward the graveyard belt. Sensors across the sector had detected the impossible. A ship was waking up. And the galaxy wanted to know why. The ship called itself Eternal Grace in a language that had no living speakers. Ho understood this not because he spoke, but because the ship spoke directly to his mind. It shared thoughts the way humans shared words, simple and clear. Wu did not like it. She stood at the edge of the central chamber, watching Ho communicate with the pillar of light. Every few seconds, new systems came online somewhere in the ship. Lights flickered to life in distant corridors. Doors that had been sealed for thousands of centuries slid open. The air grew warmer as life support woke from its long sleep. "We need to leave," she said. "Report this to the Commerce Authority. Claim our finder's rights. Let someone else deal with whatever this is." Sung shook his head. "Captain, this is the discovery of a lifetime. Technology that actually works. Every scientist in the galaxy will want to study this." "That is exactly why we should leave." Wu's voice was sharp. "Big discoveries attract big attention. Big attention attracts big problems. We are 3 humans on a tiny salvage ship. We cannot protect something like this." Ho listened to their argument, but his attention was on the holographic displays floating around him. Images moved through the air, showing scenes from the distant past. He saw them themselves for the first time. They were tall beings with silver skin and eyes like deep pools of starlight. They built ships the way artists painted pictures, with love and patience. "Why did they leave?" he asked the ship. Eternal Grace answered with more images. The gathering their fleet. Millions of ships coming together in a region of space called the Hollow. A great departure, all of them leaving this galaxy for somewhere far away. "They were running from something," Ho said quietly. "Running or searching," Eternal Grace replied. "They saw what was coming. They chose to leave before it arrived." Before Ho could ask what was coming, the ship showed him something else. Hundreds of alien species, arriving over thousands of years, trying to activate the abandoned vessels. Warriors pressing buttons and pulling levers. Commerce Authority scientists scanning every surface with advanced tools. Traders offering prayers to gods that did not answer. None of them succeeded. The ships remained dark and silent. "Why did you not respond to them?" Ho asked. "They were not compatible. Their minds did not match our requirements," Eternal Grace pulsed gently. We were designed to bond with operators who think like our creators, patient, creative, willing to understand before acting. The ship paused. Humans are rare. Your brains work differently from most species. When you touched my door, I felt something I had not felt since my creators left. Recognition. Wu stepped closer. Are you saying there are other humans who could operate ships? Many, Eternal Grace answered. Not all, but many. Your species has potential that the galaxy does not yet understand. Sung grinned. Humanity special for once, I like this story. But Wu's expression remained serious. If other species learn that humans can operate technology, we will become targets. They will want to control us or eliminate us. Ho knew she was right. The galaxy was not a friendly place. Species competed for resources, territory, and power. A small species like humanity, with fewer colonies and smaller fleets, would be easy to threaten. Before anyone could respond, the ship's sensors detected something. New arrivals in the sector. Ho felt the information flow into his mind without effort, as if he had always known how to read the ship's systems. Battle cruiser, he said, coming fast. Wu cursed under her breath. They claimed the graveyard belt as their territory. They taxed salvagers and controlled all access to the region. They were not evil, but they were aggressive and proud. A ship waking up in their space would be seen as either a threat or a prize. The communication systems came alive with a harsh voice. Unknown vessel, this is Commander Sara of the Dominion. You are ordered to power down all systems and prepare for boarding. This artifact is now property of the military. Sung looked at Ho. What do we do? Ho did not know. He was a mechanic, not a captain. He knew how to repair engines, not how to negotiate with alien warships. But Eternal Grace waited patiently in his mind, ready to follow his lead. Wu moved toward the communication panel. I will handle this. We cooperate, explain that we are just salvagers who stumbled onto something unexpected. Maybe they will let us leave. It was a reasonable plan. The smart plan, the safe plan. But something in Ho resisted. He had spent his whole life being reasonable and safe. He had followed orders in the military until those orders led to death. He had run away to salvage ships because he was afraid of responsibility. Now, for the first time, something powerful had chosen him. Something that had waited longer than human civilization had existed. No, he said. Wu stopped. What? Ho walked toward the central pillar. The ship's heart pulsed brighter as he approached. They have ignored this ship for centuries. They had their chance. Now it is mine. Ho, this is not a game. That will destroy us. He placed his hand on the pillar of light. Warmth spread through his body, and suddenly he understood Eternal Grace completely. Not just its systems, but its purpose. They had not built warships. They had built tools for creation, protection, and teaching. The weapons existed only to defend the innocent. They will not destroy us, Ho said, because I will not give them a reason to. The ship responded to his touch. Across its massive frame, systems that had slept for 400,000 years came fully alive. Shields powerful enough to stop stars wrapped around the hull. Sensors that could see across light years mapped every ship in the sector. And weapons, ancient and terrible, rose from hidden compartments and aimed at the approaching cruiser. Commander Sora's voice came again, less confident now. Unknown vessel, power down immediately or you will be fired upon. Ho smiled. He was afraid, but he was also excited. For the first time since the accident that ended his military career, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. My name is Ho, he said calmly. I am the operator of this ship. I have no wish for conflict, but I will not surrender. On the bridge of the cruiser, alarms screamed as sensors detected power levels beyond anything in their records. Commander Sora stared at the data and felt something she had not felt in decades of military service. Fear. The ancient ship was not just alive, it was awake, and it had chosen its master. More ships arrived with every passing hour. Ho watched them through Eternal Grace's sensors, feeling their approach like distant footsteps in an empty house. The cruiser was joined by two more warships. Then came a Commerce Authority diplomatic vessel, its sleek white hull marked with the symbols of galactic law. Behind them came traders, scientists, and treasure hunters from a dozen different species. All of them wanted the same thing. The ship. Wu sat in a corner of the central chamber, her face pale with worry. Sung stood by the holographic displays, watching the fleet gather with wide eyes. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing to say. Commander Sora contacted them again. This time, her voice was calmer but still carried the weight of authority. Human, I will speak plainly. You have activated technology that belongs to no living species. They are gone. Their artifacts fall under galactic salvage laws. Surrender the vessel and you will be treated fairly. Ho considered her words. There was truth in them. They were gone, and their ships had drifted unclaimed for longer than most species had existed. But he also knew what would happen if he surrendered. They would take Eternal Grace apart piece by piece. They would study its weapons and try to copy them. They would turn a ship built for protection into a tool for conquest. Before he could respond, a new voice joined the channel. It was smooth and political, the voice of someone trained to speak without saying anything real. This is Liaison of the Galactic Commerce Authority. We represent the interests of all civilized species. This artifact must be secured for proper study and preservation. Human operator, we offer you significant compensation for your cooperation. Enough credits to buy a fleet of salvage ships. Wu looked up at that. Credits were real. Credits paid for fuel, food, and repairs. A small part of Ho understood the temptation. But Eternal Grace spoke in his mind, sharing memories from its long wait. It showed him the Commerce Authority teams that had visited centuries ago. They had not come to preserve or protect. They had come to claim and control. They saw the ships as assets, nothing more. I understand your offers, Ho said carefully, but I have questions first. The ship has shown me things. I need to understand them before making any decision. Commander Sora's patience finally broke. You do not have the authority to make decisions. You are one human on a ship you cannot possibly control. My cruisers carry enough firepower to crack planets. Surrender now or face the consequences. Ho felt his heart beating faster. He was not a soldier. He was not a hero. He was just a mechanic who had spent years hiding from responsibility. But Eternal Grace trusted him. It had waited 400,000 years for someone like him. He could not betray that trust. He placed both hands on the central pillar. Light flowed through him, warm and welcoming. The ship's full power opened before him like a flower blooming in his mind. He saw everything at once. Every system, every weapon, every capability that had built into this vessel. You want to know if I can control this ship? Ho asked. His voice was steady now. Let me show you. He reached out with his thoughts and Eternal Grace responded. Not with weapons, not with violence, with something far more impressive. Every ship in the sector went dark. On the cruisers, engines stopped. Weapons powered down. Navigation systems went blind. On the Commerce Authority vessel, Liaison watched in horror as every screen flickered and died. Across the gathering fleet, 100 ships fell silent at once. Only life support remained. Air kept flowing. Heat stayed warm. But every other system stopped as if a giant hand had pressed pause on reality. Ho had not fired a single shot. He had simply asked the ships to stop, and they had obeyed. Technology was so advanced that modern vessels could not even resist its commands. I could destroy you all, Ho said into the sudden silence. Every ship, every crew gone in a moment. Eternal Grace has that power, he paused. But I will not. That is not why I am here. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Commander Sora's voice came through, shaking slightly. What do you want? Ho thought carefully. He was making this up as he went, following instinct rather than any plan. I want time. The ship has been sharing knowledge with me. Things about the why they left, what they were preparing for. I need to understand it all before I decide what to do. And if we refuse, Liaison asked, then you float here until I change my mind. Ho smiled slightly. You have life support. You will not die, but you will not move either. The silence stretched for several minutes. Then, one by one, voices began agreeing to his terms. They had no choice. Against technology, their weapons meant nothing. Ho released his hold on their ships. Engines came back online. Lights flickered to life, but nobody moved toward eternal grace. Nobody dared. Wu stood up and walked to Ho's side. She looked at him with an expression he could not quite read. Respect, maybe, or fear, perhaps both. You realize what you just did? She asked quietly. You just challenged the two most powerful forces in the galaxy. They will not forget this. I know. They will come back with bigger fleets, more weapons. They will try to take this ship by force. I know that too. Sung joined them, his earlier excitement replaced by something more serious. So what do we do now? Eternal Grace answered before Ho could speak. The ship sent a new image into his mind, something it had been saving for the right moment. Coordinates in deep space, far beyond the graveyard belt. A region called the Hollow, where they had gathered their fleet before the great departure. And there, waiting in the darkness, were 7 more ships. We are not alone, Eternal Grace said. My sisters still sleep, but they felt my awakening. They are calling for me, calling for you. Ho stared at the coordinates. 7 more ships like this one. 7 more vessels of impossible power. If he could reach them, if he could wake them too, then humanity would have something the galaxy had never seen. A fleet built by gods. Set a course, he said. Wu sighed. I was afraid you would say that. But she moved to the navigation controls, and Sung took his place at the pilot station. They were still a salvage crew, still 3 humans on a ship too big for them to understand. But somewhere along the way, they had become something more. They were the first crew of Eternal Grace, and they were about to change everything. The journey to the Hollow took 3 weeks. Ho spent most of that time learning. Eternal Grace was patient, sharing its knowledge slowly so his human mind could absorb it. He learned about their history stretching back millions of years. He learned about their technology, which did not simply use energy but worked with the fundamental forces of the universe itself. And he learned about their departure. They had not run from war or disaster. They had run from something worse, a slow death creeping across the void between galaxies. The ship showed him images of the darkness between stars, where nothing lived and nothing grew. But something was moving there, a wave of decay spreading from regions so old that even light had forgotten them. It consumed everything in its path, turning living space into dead space. They calculated it would reach this galaxy in approximately 500,000 years. 100,000 years from now, Ho said quietly. That is when it arrives. Wu listened to his explanations each evening in the ship's dining area. She was starting to accept their situation, though she still worried constantly. 100,000 years is a long time. Why prepare now? Because the plan far ahead. They left their ships behind as seeds, tools for whoever came after them. If the right species found them, if the right operators awakened them, then maybe someone could find a way to stop what they could not. Sung looked up from his meal, and humans are the right species. Apparently, Ho still found it hard to believe. Humanity was young compared to most galactic civilizations. They had only been traveling among the stars for 300 years, yet they had built ships that responded specifically to human minds. Maybe we are not the only ones, Wu suggested. Maybe humans just happen to be first. Eternal Grace answered through Ho. Others may come, but humans fit best. Your minds hold both logic and emotion in balance. You create and destroy with equal passion. You protect the weak and challenge the strong. They valued these qualities above all others. They reached the hollow at the end of the third week. It was not a place but an absence, a region where stars had never formed and darkness ruled completely. No species had ever mapped it. No one had reason to come here. Until now. The 7 ships waited in perfect formation, silver shapes against the endless black. Each one was different from eternal grace but clearly built by the same hands. Some were larger, some smaller. Some had long, graceful wings while others were compact and powerful. All of them slept, dark and silent, waiting for someone to wake them. Ho felt them calling, faint whispers in his mind, too soft to understand. They knew he was here. They knew one of their sisters had finally found her operator. "They are beautiful," Sung whispered. Wu was already checking sensors. "We are not alone." She was right. Behind them, emerging from faster-than-light travel, came the fleet they had left at the graveyard belt. Commander Sora's cruisers, Liaison's Commerce Authority vessels, and new ships too, from 3 other major powers. They had formed a coalition, setting aside their differences to claim the greatest treasure in galactic history. A transmission came through. It was Sara, her voice cold and controlled. "Human, you led us to this place. We thank you, but now you must step aside. These ships are too important to belong to any single species, especially one as young as yours." Liaison added his voice. "The Commerce Authority proposes a fair division, 1 ship for humanity. The remaining 7 will be distributed among the coalition members. Refuse, and we will have no choice but to act." Ho looked at the fleet behind them. Dozens of warships, representing the combined military might of 5 civilizations. Even eternal grace could not fight them all, not if he wanted to avoid killing. Wu touched his arm. "They are offering us a ship. That is more than we could have hoped for." "It is not enough," Ho said. "Then what do we do?" He did not answer. Instead, he walked to the central pillar and placed his hands on the light. Eternal grace responded immediately, connecting him to its sleeping sisters. He felt their dreams, scattered memories of the preserved across. He felt their loneliness, waiting in the dark with no one to hear their calls. And he asked them a question. "What do you want?" The response came slowly at first, then faster as the sleeping ships woke enough to understand. They did not want to be tools. They did not want to be weapons. They wanted what they had wanted, to protect, to teach, to prepare the galaxy for what was coming. Ho opened his eyes. "They will not accept them." Commander Sara's voice grew dangerous. "What?" "These ships choose their operators. You cannot force them to obey. I could give you all 7 vessels right now, and they would sit dark and silent forever, just like they did for 400,000 years. Silence stretched across the communication channels. The coalition fleet had come so far, gathered so much strength, and now they faced a truth they did not want to hear. Power could not take what could only be given. "Then wake them for us," Liaison demanded. "Choose operators from our species." Ho shook his head, even though they could not see it. "I cannot choose for them. Only they can decide who is worthy." He turned to the 7 ships and reached out with his mind, not commanding but inviting. He shared everything he had learned from eternal grace, the truth about the coming darkness, the hope they had left behind, the chance to do something that mattered. One by one, the ships responded. Lights flickered on. Energy signatures rose. 7 ancient vessels woke from their long sleep. And they sent a message, not to the coalition fleet, not to Ho. To Earth. The transmission was simple and clear, broadcast in every human language at once. "More are coming. Prepare them." Commander Sara demanded explanations. Liaison threatened consequences, but Ho was not listening anymore. He was watching the 7 ships, feeling their joy at finally having purpose again. They did not belong to the galaxy. They did not belong to any species, but they had chosen their destination. Earth. Wu appeared beside him, her face showing something that might have been pride. You just changed everything, you know. Humanity was nobody special. Now we are the inheritors of the legacy. I did not choose this, Ho said quietly. The ships chose us. Same thing, Sung said, grinning. Either way, we are going home with the biggest fleet in galactic history. I like our odds. Behind them, the coalition fleet could only watch as 8 ships turned toward Earth. They could not stop them. They could not even follow at the speeds these ancient vessels traveled. All they could do was wonder what would happen next. And fear the answer. 6 months had passed since Ho touched a door in the depths of a forgotten ship. Now he stood on a platform above Earth, watching the blue planet turn slowly below. 8 ships orbited in perfect formation, their silver hulls reflecting sunlight like mirrors in heaven. Around them floated the human defense fleet, tiny in comparison but proud nonetheless. They had never been more protected. It had also never been more threatened. Every major species in the galaxy had sent representatives. Their ships filled the space around the fleet, thousands of vessels from dozens of civilizations. Some came to negotiate, some came to threaten. All came because they understood that the balance of power had shifted forever. Commander Sora arrived first, her cruisers forming a military escort for her personal transport. She had not forgotten the humiliation at the Hollow, but she was smart enough to adapt. They could not take what they wanted, so now they would try to buy it. Liaison came next, bringing the full weight of Commerce Authority diplomacy. Behind closed doors, he had already offered humanity membership in the Authority, protection treaties, and trade agreements worth more than Earth's entire economy. All they had to do was share technology. Other species followed. The traders proposed partnerships. The scientists begged for research access. The Stern demanded answers about the coming darkness Ho had mentioned in his broadcasts. Ho met none of them personally. That task fell to Earth's actual diplomats, people trained for such things. He remained on eternal grace, learning and teaching, preparing for what he knew must come. Wu found him in the observation chamber one morning. She had stayed with him through everything, though she still complained about the lack of normal salvage work. Sung had become his first student, learning to interface with systems almost as naturally as Ho himself. The council wants you to make a decision, Wu said. The coalition is getting impatient. They say we cannot keep the ships to ourselves forever. We are not keeping them, Ho replied. They chose to come here, they chose us. The galaxy does not see it that way. They see a young species with power they did not earn. Ho turned from the window. He looked tired but calm, like a man who had finally found peace with his place in the universe. Then I should explain it to them. The gathering took place on a neutral station, a commerce authority platform designed for exactly this kind of meeting. Representatives from every major species filled the central chamber, their translators working overtime to bridge 100 different languages. Ho stood alone at the center, dressed simply, carrying no weapons. Commander Sora spoke first. Human, you have made promises about sharing the legacy. We are here to collect. Liaison nodded. The Commerce Authority supports equal distribution, 1 ship per major power. This is fair and reasonable. Other voices joined in, demanding their share, arguing about who deserved what. Ho let them talk. When the noise finally died down, he raised his hand for silence. I understand your concerns, he said. You see power and you want it. That is natural. Every species fights for advantage. Every civilization seeks strength. He paused. But you misunderstand what the left behind. He activated a holographic display, sharing images directly from Eternal Grace's memory. The chamber fell silent as they watched them build their ships, not as weapons, but as tools for healing worlds and protecting the helpless. They saw the great departure, millions of vessels leaving this galaxy for unknown destinations. And they saw the darkness, the wave of decay spreading from the void, consuming everything in its path. They could not stop it, Ho said. They were the most advanced species this galaxy has ever known, and they ran. They left their ships behind, hoping someone else might succeed where they failed. He let that sink in before continuing. The ships did not choose humanity because we are special. They chose us because our minds fit their requirements, because we think the way their creators thought, patient, creative, willing to understand before acting. He looked around the room. Other species could not activate them. You tried for 400,000 years. If I gave you these ships today, they would sit dark and silent until the end of time. Commander Sara stood. Then teach us, train our people to interface with them. I cannot. Compatibility is not something that can be learned. It is how your brain works, how your thoughts form. Ho spread his hands. But I can offer something else. He took a deep breath. This was the moment he had been preparing for, the words he had practiced with Wu and sung through many sleepless nights. Earth will not sell the ships. We will not trade them or divide them among the powers, but we will share them. Murmurs ran through the chamber. Liaison raised an eyebrow. Explain. The ships were built for protection and teaching, not conquest. Any species that commits to using the technology for defense and healing can send candidates to Earth. If the ships accept them, if they are compatible, they can join the fleet. Ho met the eyes of every representative in turn. This is not about power. This is about survival. 100,000 years from now, something terrible arrives. We have that long to prepare. The reaction was mixed. Some species saw the wisdom in his offer. Others saw only the threat of humanity controlling access to impossible power. Commander Sara looked ready to argue, but something in Ho's expression stopped her. You are asking us to trust you, she said finally. I am asking you to trust the ships. They have waited longer than most of your civilizations have existed. They know what is coming. They will not accept operators who seek conquest. Ho smiled slightly. If you try to use them for war, they will simply stop working. They designed them that way. The negotiations continued for days. Some species rejected the offer and left in anger. Others accepted cautiously, sending their first candidates to Earth for testing. Slowly, carefully, a new order began to form. Not an alliance exactly, something stranger, a preparation for a threat none of them could imagine, led by ships that remembered a galaxy long gone. On the final day, Ho returned to eternal grace. Wu and Sung were waiting for him on the observation deck, watching Earth turn below. Not bad for a mechanic, Wu said. Ho laughed softly. I just fixed what was broken. Sung pointed toward the window. Look. Far below, something was happening. Lights were flickering on across the planet, not city lights, but something different. Signals from humans who had heard the call. Engineers and mechanics, artists and dreamers, people whose minds worked the way they needed. They were waking up, reaching out, ready to be tested. Across the galaxy, more ships were stirring from their long sleep. Eternal grace could feel them now, scattered through the stars, waiting for compatible operators. And for the first time in 400,000 years, those operators existed. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had not proven their worth through war or politics. They had simply shown up, reached out, and listened. The machines had done the rest. Ho placed his hand on the wall of his ship, feeling its warmth through his fingertips. He was still just a mechanic at heart, a man who understood machines better than he understood people. But somehow, that had been enough. The inheritance of Earth had begun, and somewhere in the void, the darkness continued its slow approach. But now, for the first time, someone was preparing to face it. Together,